You didn't break your promise this morning. You renegotiated it. A short meeting, held in the dark, and you lost. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you someone who agreed to arbitration. Disciplined people keep 9 items off the table entirely. There are 9, and over the next half hour, I'll hand you all of them in order. The 9th will sound more like permission than discipline, which is exactly why it keeps the other 8 alive. Picture the meeting that actually happens at 5:41 in the morning. 2 parties. One of them signed a contract last night, sober and clear-eyed, laying clothes over the back of a chair. The other one arrives in the dark with a very good lawyer. The lawyer is patient. The lawyer never shouts, never insults you, and knows every clause in the agreement, because the lawyer helped write it. It's only one morning, the lawyer says. You're more tired than usual, and rest is also discipline. You'll do it at 7 when the light is better and you've had coffee. Every argument is reasonable. Every argument arrives in your own voice, which is why you never recognize it as an argument at all. And you lose. Not because you're weak, because you agreed to hold the hearing. The lawyer is you. You can't fire them, and you can't out-argue them either. They have your entire history in the folder and unlimited time. The only thing you can do is shorten the agenda.
Everything that follows is an item that disciplined people have struck from the docket permanently, so that when the meeting convenes, there is nothing listed to discuss. 1. They never negotiate the first move of the day. Not that they wake up full of resolve. The first action was decided once, in advance, in writing, by a version of them that had time to think. A commercial pilot with 12,000 hours doesn't decide whether to check the flap setting. The card decides. That card was written by someone calm, on the ground, unhurried, and it deliberately outranks the pilot who is tired, running late, and certain they already checked. That's what you do once you know judgment degrades exactly when the stakes rise. Your morning needs a card. It doesn't need to be a vision, and it shouldn't be a routine you watched someone else perform at midnight. One line, written on paper the night before, in if-then form. When my feet touch the floor, I put on the shoes by the door. Peter Goldwitzer and Pascal Sheeran pooled 94 studies on this and found a medium to large effect, around 0.65, for people who committed to a specific "if this happens, I will do that" plan over people holding the identical goal as a general intention. Write the line tonight. Let the paper outrank the man in the bed. 2. They never wait to feel like it.
It is 3:04 in the morning and the trauma bay is loud. The clock above the doors has a second hand that nobody is watching. Someone is calling out a blood pressure. Someone else is cutting a shirt away with shears. The surgeon pulls the gloves on, steps in at the right hip, and asks for suction. And in that entire room, at that hour, not one person turns and asks whether they feel inspired tonight. The role decides. The mood is allowed to be present in the room. It isn't allowed to vote. Feeling like it is a forecast, and you are a poor forecaster of your own weather. Ask someone how long a breakup will hurt, and they'll tell you months. Follow them, and it's weeks. Daniel Gilbert and Timothy Wilson named that gap the impact bias, and it runs in both directions. We overestimate the good days, too. So I'll feel like it at 7 is a prediction issued by a source with a documented record of being wrong. Treat your mood the way a professional treats weather. Information to work in, never permission to work at all. Most people get the next one wrong, and they get it wrong in the direction that looks like ambition. 3. They never renegotiate the floor downward mid-effort. The floor is your daily minimum. Most people set a minimum they can only reach when the day cooperates. Call that what it is, a good day's target wearing a rule's clothes.
It is 11:52 at night, and she has a fever. The day has been a loss in every way a day can be a loss. She gets down on the bathroom tile, still wearing work clothes, and does one set, 12 reps, 4 minutes, including the walk from the couch. Physiologically, it builds close to nothing, and she knows that and does it anyway, because the unbroken line is the asset, and the set is only how you pay for it. Compare it to the version most people run. The plan said 45 minutes. The day fell apart. 45 became impossible, so 0 happened. 0 belongs to a different category of event entirely. B.J. Fogg's behavior design work at Stanford makes the mechanism plain. Behavior needs motivation, ability, and a prompt, and the lever you can actually move is ability. Shrink the behavior until it stops requiring motivation to occur. So cut your minimum until it's embarrassing to say out loud. Cut it to 1 page, or 10 minutes, whichever sounds worse to admit. Then refuse to go beneath it, especially on the nights it seems pointless, especially then. 4 is where this stops being comfortable, because 4 is the one you've already broken this month without noticing. 4. They never negotiate the day after a miss. 1 miss is an accident. 2 is a decision. A stone chip in a windshield is nothing, cosmetic. You can drive on it for months and forget it's there.
Then one cold morning you run the defroster, the glass expands unevenly, and the chip becomes a crack that walks straight across your field of vision in under a second. Nobody watches it happen. You just look up at some point, and the view is different. The missed day is the chip. The story you tell yourself about the missed day is the change in temperature. Janet Polivy and Peter Herman documented this in Dieters and gave it a blunt name, the what the hell effect. People who believed they had already broken their rule went on to eat considerably more for the rest of the day, not less. The rule was broken, so the rule stopped applying. The lapse does nothing on its own. The conclusion you draw from it does all the damage. So the repair rule: 1 adjournment, never 2. The rep after a miss is the most important rep you will ever perform, and it should be the smallest one you own. Don't come back at 150% to settle up. Come back at the floor. The same day if you can manage it, the next day at the latest. The rep after a miss re-signs the contract. That is the whole job it has to do. 5. They never negotiate with what's within arm's reach. Approaching the sirens, Odysseus doesn't train his resolve or promise the crew he'll be fine. He has himself lashed to the mast and orders the ropes tightened if he begs.
Behavioral economists still call this a Ulysses contract, a decision made by your strong self that binds your weak self, on the open assumption that the weak self will show up and will be persuasive. Keep the thing you can't resist within arm's reach, and you are staging a fight you have already lost twice this month. And there's a detail from Walter Mischel's marshmallow experiments worth sitting with. The children who lasted longest turned around. They sang, they covered their eyes, or reimagined the marshmallow as a picture or a cloud. They managed their attention. Willpower never entered the room. Tonight, don't promise to resist anything. Remove 1 object from 1 room. Everything so far has assumed the fight happens in the dark, at the edge of an action you're avoiding. The rest of this list assumes something less flattering. The last 4 are about daylight, about what you do while you're awake, capable, and causing damage in ways that look a great deal like effort. 6. They never look away from the number. She used to write with the word count visible in the status bar at the bottom of the document, and she'd glance at it every 20 minutes or so without really meaning to. Then came the week the numbers stopped moving. 400 words on Monday, 90 on Tuesday, nothing at all on Wednesday, though she sat there until 11.
On Thursday, she right-clicked the status bar and switched the word count off, and told herself it was because the number was a distraction and real writers don't work that way. That was 3 weeks ago. The document is still open on her desk every night. She still sits down at it. She could not tell you within 4,000 words how long the manuscript currently is, and that not knowing has become the most comfortable part of her evening. Everyone has a version of that. There are unopened envelopes in a drawer somewhere, a banking app quietly relocated to the last home screen, a scale pushed behind the winter coats. Thomas Webb, Betty Chang, and Yal Ben named this the ostrich problem. People systematically avoid monitoring their progress toward a goal,
precisely when they suspect the news is bad, which is exactly when the information is worth most. Carlson, Lowenstein, and Seppi found the same shape in investors. Logins to check a portfolio fall off when the market does. Looking costs one uncomfortable minute. Not looking costs the correction. So open the number you've been avoiding tonight, and then do nothing about it. Don't fix it, don't plan around it. Looking as the whole assignment. 7. They never treat a promise made to themselves as a smaller class of promise. You wouldn't text a friend 14 minutes before dinner to say you're not really feeling it.
You wouldn't let a client's deadline slide because you woke up flat. You drive across town in the rain for someone else's small favor and never mention it. Then, at 6:40 in the morning, you cancel on yourself with less notice and less explanation than you'd offer a stranger. And by 9, you've forgotten it happened. Except you haven't, exactly. Daryl Bim's self-perception theory holds that we work out who we are largely by observing our own behavior, the same way an outsider would. You are the outsider. You've been taking notes for years, which is why the next time you sit down to plan something ambitious, some quiet part of you checks the record before you've written a word. That flat feeling when you sit down to plan is underwriting. Some part of you has read the file and priced the risk, and it priced it correctly, using data you supplied. The uncomfortable implication is simple. If you can't keep them, don't make them. Disciplined people make fewer promises to themselves than you do. Theirs are just much harder to get out of. Have the list. Then treat what survives as though someone you respect is sitting in the lobby, waiting. 8 is the one that should feel like relief, because it takes something off you rather than adding to the pile. 8. They never make their discipline contingent on being seen.
Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, commanding the frontier campaigns along the Danube, wrote at night in Greek, not Latin, the language of his court and his public life. Greek. The notebooks are addressed to no one. There's no defense of his record in them, no explanation for posterity, no case built for a reader. They're a man giving himself instructions and correcting himself for the same faults over and over, with an intended audience of exactly one. We call it meditations. He called it nothing, because it wasn't for us. The most powerful man alive kept his standards inside a document he never once addressed to a reader. Epictetus, born into slavery, opens the Enchiridion with a division that makes this possible. Some things are within our power and some are not, and misery is the confusion of the two. What other people think of your discipline lives permanently in the second category, which gives you the practical cut. Stop explaining. When someone pushes back on your bedtime, your schedule, your refusal of the second drink, they're usually not arguing with your logic. They're negotiating on behalf of their own comfort. And an explanation is an invitation to negotiate. I don't closes the door in 2 words. I'm trying not to props it open. Do one of your practices this week where nobody sees it and nobody hears about it afterward. 9. They never negotiate the ending.
They stop on schedule while it's still going well, and they don't let one good session talk them into a bad week. Hemingway described his own rule in a 1935 Esquire piece, and again in A Movable Feast. Stop while you're going well, and while you still know what happens next. Never write yourself empty. He'd break off mid-sentence, knowing exactly where the next line went, and walk away. So the next morning held no blank page, only a sentence waiting to be finished. Bluma Zydarnik observed in 1927 that unfinished tasks tend to stay active in memory in a way completed ones don't. The deliberately unfinished sentence keeps working on you overnight, for free, while you sleep. Now the version you'll recognize. Sunday arrives, and so does the motivation you've been waiting weeks for. You go 5 hours instead of 1. You produce something genuinely good. You feel unstoppable, and you tell yourself this is who you actually are. Then you don't touch it again for 11 days. That was Monday, spent early. The part of you that couldn't stop on Sunday
is the same part that couldn't start on Tuesday. It just found a flattering week to show up in. The people who look most disciplined from the outside are the ones closing the shop while there's still light in the window, on purpose, mid-sentence. Set your end time as firmly as your start time. Quit while you still know the next move.
I told you the 9th would sound more like permission than discipline. It does. It's the only item on the list that tells you to stop. And that is precisely why it keeps the other 8 alive. A 5-hour Sunday doesn't only cost you Monday. It blows the floor for the whole week that follows. And the floor is the ground the other 8 are standing on. Every item here is a floor you can hold on your worst week, not a peak you can hold for a weekend. Which is also the structural point behind all 9. Non-negotiables cost something to defend. You can only afford a few. A disciplined life is a shorter agenda, with fewer things left to argue about. So don't take all 9. Take 3. And take the 3 that made you uncomfortable rather than the 3 you already do. Defend those for 30 days. Let the rest wait their turn. Return to that table one last time. Same room, same hour. The same patient voice with the folder and the reasonable objections. But over months, the agenda thins. The wake-up comes off the table, and then the floor, and then the second miss, and then the audience. And one morning the lawyer arrives, opens the folder, and finds nothing listed. There is no case to argue, and nothing left to win. So they go and get dressed with you instead. You will not out-argue yourself. Nobody does. Stop arguing. Take 3 items off the table, and leave them there.
If this is the voice you want in your ear at 5:41 in the morning, subscribe and stay for the next one. And before you go, answer one thing, even if only to yourself, out loud in an empty room. Which of the 9 is still on your table?